Welcome back. Vodacom shares are down this afternoon after it reported a drop in headline earnings of 4% today. South Africa's largest mobile operator now has nearly 62 million customers, but it says it faced major cuts in mobile termination rates, which are the rates mobile operators charge one another, as well as increased competition. As fast data penetration becomes the next frontier, the CEO of Vodacom, Shameel Joosub, has expressed frustration that its tie-up with fixed-line operator Neotel is still sitting with regulatory authorities. Francis Hurd spoke to him earlier today. She started by asking him if Vodacom was unrepentant about recent hikes in contract rates that had many customers up in arms.
For us to basically take a decision to put up prices. We've not put up prices in over 10 years. And our default is not to put up prices, it's actually to bring prices down. But in this case, we actually had to put prices up to bring prices down. Now that sounds a bit strange, but effectively what that means is that we basically repricing our customer base and giving customers more value. So as we're shifting them to new plans, we're increasing the amount of value that's included in those plans. And to be able to do that, with all the pain that's come from the mobile termination rate, plus the exchange rate, plus inflation, plus the price transformation, it just became too much, and we couldn't do all of it. And so, we continue to bring prices down this coming year again, but we had to take a slight increase. And I mean, to put in perspective, it was about a 3% across the board increase. And I think the important part was we tried to minimize it. So it's not something that we'll do every year.
You've mentioned the termination rates several times. And my question to you is, does Vodacom have a right to complain? Because by all accounts, for years, these rates were too high. It stopped smaller players from coming in. Can you now say that we've been hard done by because they've been reduced?
One needs to understand the context of mobile termination rates. Actually, the big beneficiary is Telkom. So 75% of that benefit actually goes to Telkom. So it props up Telkom, not the smaller players. So yes, the small players do get a little bit of a leg up, but the biggest benefactor of this is actually Telkom.
Just explain that.
It's the fixed calls terminating on the mobile part. Okay. So about 75% of the benefit actually goes to Telkom. The 25% is basically the rest of the industry, if you like. So, and it wasn't a question of whether mobile termination rates should come down. I think we agreed the mobile termination rates should come down. But the issue was the quantum in 1 year. But look, it's behind us now. So we took a 2 billion hit in revenue. Now, when you take a 2 billion hit in revenue and a 1.2 billion hit in EBITDA, and on your bottom line, it just, it does cause a lot of strain on the system. And that was one of the reasons why. And then you put the pricing transformation on that. You put on top the health of the consumer. You put on top of that, the decline in the rand and equipment is becoming more part. You take a 6% inflation environment. And then you start to get to the point where you have to put a price increase to be able to sustain all of it.
All right, so let's talk about the competition here at home. SABC has recently announced plans to pay customers up to 10,000 Rand to get out of their contracts. Is that a big challenge to you? And is it a challenge to the whole contract model, which people have been complaining about for years, but given their behavior, are they actually all right with it?
I think one has to understand that when you look at contracts, effectively the big thing about it is, otherwise everybody would be on prepaid, is the device. Your devices today have gone up substantially. A few years ago, your average device was 2 to 3 grand. Today, your top-end device is as much as 16,000 Rand. So what's happening is a bigger and bigger portion of the subscription is being used to recover the cost of the device. Because remember, when the rand weakens, if you take the rand weaken about 40% in the last 3 years, that means your devices are 40% more expensive. Now, you haven't put prices up, so where does it come from? It's got to come from basically more, what the company's absorbing more of it. So prepaid is there for customers who don't necessarily want to be tied in, but you have to amortize that device cost over a period. You want to shorten the contract period, fine, but that just means that people have to pay more, to recover the cost of the device.
Are you worried about Cell C's move?
I think we never take any competition lightly, but I think it presupposes that people want to leave. And we have a very low churn on our base, because of the service levels that we provide, and honestly, there's still room for improvement, but also because of our network investment and the fact that we have the best network by a long shot over any of our competitors.
It seems like the next frontier is data in people's homes. So going back to fixed line, people want huge speeds to do what they need to do in the home. How is Vodacom playing there, and how does this proposed tie-up with Neotel feed into that?
For us, it's if you look at the South African business, voice is saturating. The big opportunity is in data, and as you say, people want to consume more and more data. Today they're consuming it purely, mainly from a mobile perspective, because you have very little DSL or fiber lines in the country. It's a big opportunity in the country, because your level of penetration is sitting at below 7%. When you look at developed economies, it's between 75 and 100. So South Africa is lagging substantially, both from a business perspective and also from a consumer perspective. So the connected home is got to come. We've got to basically build our fiber to be able to achieve that. The connected business and access to more and more, more and more programs in the cloud, if you like, or more and more software in the cloud, I think is where you're going to. So what we want to do with Neotel is take the business, capitalize it properly, and effectively use that as a vehicle for growth. And, it helps us to grow, but more importantly, it helps to develop the infrastructure in South Africa.
Are you frustrated because you need Neotel and there's been no approval?
Instead of looking for another country, what we're doing is saying, look, here's a key opportunity on our doorstep with Neotel. And it's frustrating because by now it should have been finalized, because every day that we take in delaying this transaction is a day lost in how we could have been connecting South Africa. And we've set ourselves a big goal in terms of what we want to achieve by 2020 as a country. But we're not enabling players like ourselves to be able to do it and fast-track that.
Francis heard speaking to Vodacom CEO Shameel Joosub there on the company's results out today.